I hope very much that no one in the situation that we now are faced, the decision having been taken, would seek to do that. And I do not believe that when time has been passed for maturer councils, that such a view will be taken.
The close connection between the paramilitary Ulster Defence Association and Vanguard was obvious at the recruiting centres. Tens of thousands of Protestants joined Vanguard, demanding a return to majority, that is, Protestant rule, an end to concessions to the Catholic minority, and the destruction of the IRA. Its resolve echoed 1912, when the call of no surrender marshalled Protestants against Home Rule, and the presence on the streets of the Ulster Defence Association, now numbering 50,000 men, recalled the threat of the Ulster Volunteer Force 60 years before. As they marched past the Catholic Unity Flats, they made their feelings clear. Such was the tension between the two communities that sectarian killings were now a feature of Belfast life. By the end of the year, 87 Catholics and 43 Protestants had been killed for no better reason than their religion. In the Catholic ghettos of Belfast and Derry, provisionals were policing their own areas. For nearly a year, parts of both cities were no-go areas into which neither police nor army were admitted. Provisional checkpoints were a common sight. Then in June, a truce was agreed between the British government and the provisionals. Secret talks involving Whitelaw took place in London. The talks were fruitless and the truce collapsed when fighting broke out on the Lenadoon estate in Belfast. The Northern Ireland Housing Executive had allocated houses abandoned by Protestants to Catholics. The UDA had objected, fearing Catholic encroachment into Protestant territory. When attempts had been made to move in a Catholic family, the army had intervened. The intention was to stop a confrontation between the provisionals and the UDA. Lorries loaded with Catholic furniture were pushed back by army tenders. When the army moved deep into the Catholic district, the provisionals informed them that they considered the truce to be broken. Yes. A gun battle broke out.
The orders are, if you can see a gunman, a man with a weapon, then you may shoot him. A man with a weapon. But you cannot return fire just because you think fire is coming from that area. If you are certain that you can see the gunman there, then you may engage. Over.
From May 1972, the UDA began to build its own barricades and declare strategically placed no-go areas in Protestant districts. A government that negotiated with the provisionals could not be trusted, nor could a security policy that allowed Catholics to control their own areas. By mid-July, the UDA could be seen patrolling the streets. The province was becoming ungovernable as more and more areas became out of bounds to the security forces. Whole districts of Belfast were seceding from the state. Protestant barricades had a distinctly permanent look. Loyalists were serving notice that they would not be pushed around by Westminster, and intransigents hardened by the Provisional IRA's campaign. Friday, 21st of July, 1972. Between 2 and 4 o'clock, 22 bomb explosions went off within a mile of Belfast city centre. The army said the warnings had been inadequate, the provisionals that the army had not acted on them. Nine people were killed, 130 injured. At this bus station, 6 died, blown quite literally to pieces. Pandemonium gripped Belfast. That day is remembered as Bloody Friday. Dawn, 10 days later. The army moved into both Protestant and Catholic no-go areas. The province was experiencing over 4 explosions and nearly 50 shooting incidents a day. Bloody Friday had made it imperative for Whitelaw to act. It also made it easy. That day had shaken virtually everyone in the province, including the Catholics. Support drained from the provisionals. Only in Derry did the army meet with resistance.
Well, the operation's gone very well. As a result of what we started at 4 o'clock this morning, the position now in Northern Ireland is that anyone can go anywhere at any time, and that's what I wanted to achieve.
As the province returned to what passed for normal life in Belfast, the British government began to cast around for some kind of solution. March 1973 saw the most sophisticated attempt yet to solve the Northern Ireland problem. A white paper proposed an elected assembly which would have no authority until an executive of both Catholic and Protestant ministers had agreed to share power. A Council of Ireland would discuss matters of mutual concern to the two Irish governments. Hardline unionists saw power sharing as undemocratic, and the Council as a step towards a united Ireland. At Stormont, Ian Paisley outlined how he would oppose it.
1, by exhausting every parliamentary device to defeat the white paper, and 2, by complementing that campaign in Parliament by a campaign across the country.
When the members elected to the Assembly met at Stormont in July 1973, it seemed possible that power sharing might work. The traditional Protestant party, the Unionists, had already split. About half rejected the proposals out of hand, but the rest, under Brian Faulkner, were prepared to consider it. Faulkner had 22 Unionist seats, so together with the non-sectarian Alliance Party and the Catholic SDLP, led by Gerry Fitt, there was a majority in favour of power sharing. Protracted and difficult negotiations between the three parties under the chairmanship of Whitelaw went on for 5 months.
Mr. Whitelaw, what are the results of the talk, Mr. Whitelaw?
You've all agreed not to comment, and we're not going to comment.
Are you meeting again? Are you going to meet again?
We're putting out a statement, and we've all agreed not to comment on it at all. You read the statement. Read the statement.
It's a very nice evening, after so many hours in there.
An excellent step. The agreement was finalised at a conference at Sunningdale near Ascot in December 1973. Official unionists, the Alliance Party and the SDLP would share power. Brian Faulkner as Chief Minister, Jerry Fitt his deputy. 4 Catholics would hold cabinet posts. But power sharing was only one dimension of the Sunningdale talks. There was also an Irish dimension, the Council of Ireland. The agreement was signed by the British Prime Minister Edward Heath and Irish Premier Liam Cosgrave. The Council of Ireland acknowledged the aspiration for a united Ireland without significantly advancing it. In all, it was a dexterous and clever solution. In a less heated climate than Northern Ireland, it might have survived. It was enough for the Catholic SDLP, but Faulkner had conceded too much for the loyalist temper. Already the assembly at Stormont was surrounded by police and barbed wire. Loyalists who'd broken away from Faulkner's unionist party would not give an inch. Sunningdale would be opposed, and if necessary, the parliamentary business of Stormont stopped. Now, Faulkner's unionists confronted Paisley loyalists.
We want on the record our objections to this fact, and as public representatives we're entitled to have it. What is more, an answer to your question? The Speaker cannot anticipate anything that happens. If I stood here and told the press I'm going to punch Mr. Faulkner in the nose, nothing can be done in the House until I get up and do it. He can't anticipate serious disruption. He has to wait until it happens.
That day, the Speaker adjourned the sitting after only 2 minutes. Police were used to prevent members re-entering the chamber.
As I go into this House and I see the behaviour of these people, led by the demon doctor that preaches God knows what round the country, it's time it's got to stop. It really is.
What does it mean for the Assembly, Mr. Faulkner?
It's certainly not going to stop the Assembly working. I can tell you this, that the coalition that has been built up of the SDLP and the Alliance and the official unionists are going to see that the Assembly works and that Ulster gets the good government that she deserves, and that the police force are not going to have to be used to protect people that are talking a lot of hypocritic cant in here.
6 weeks later, January 1974, police at Stormont had to call in the Redcaps, the military police. Loyalists had occupied seats reserved for the executive and removed the mace. 18 of them, including Paisley, were forcibly ejected.
Mr. My friend Alderman Craig, who happens to be the... Just a minute. He happens... Just a moment. He happens to be the deputy mayor of Carrickfergus and an alderman in Carrickfergus, assemblyman. And he was thrown there, you saw it. And these red caps. What are you doing with that man? What are you doing with that man? What are you doing? That's enough, I
said. Your people want this kind of scene.
I'd like to tell you, sir, we acted completely and totally unconstitutionally. We saw the Speaker yesterday and gave him notice. And what did the Speaker say? The Speaker said he was the servant of the executive and would not protect minorities in the House.
Isn't this
so
the
if
kind
he's
of
prepared,
chaos, Mr.
if
Paisley,
he's
that you want
prepared,
to see provoked?
just a minute, don't you be putting words into my mouth. I have made my statement. I have made my protest. I was totally in order. And let me tell you this. Go down and photograph the bayonets of the British Army. 1,000 army men. And if that, sir, is the sort of thing you think you'll get democracy in Northern Ireland, get you back to England.
To see this place surrounded like a fortress, you think the communists were coming here.
It's a communist state. Let me tell you this, we have tried to keep the people off the streets, and we have tried to make them support the RUC. But when they see what has taken place in this house today, I can tell you this, that I never in my life will try and defend the RUC. Because you're no good, you're only puppets for Whitelaw and the rest of them Comanches and Westminster.
We on public platforms have defended them over the country. Barney's prison and flammable.
Burn the ladder! Burn Faulkner first! And then get set!
There goes the Lundies!
Burn them now! Faulkner's out first!
Here goes Jerry!
March 1974. Protestants demonstrate against Sunningdale at Stormont. At the general election, every MP but one returned to Westminster by Northern Ireland opposed Sunningdale. Protestants were adamant.
What have the people of Ulster said? They have said, first of all, to Mr. Faulkner and his cronies, we will have nothing to do with enforced power sharing in any undemocratic government in Stormont. And they have said, with a voice of authority, Mr. Faulkner, the time has come for you to go.
May 1974. Loyalist workers take to the streets. Protestant barricades are thrown up. When Sunningdale was ratified by the Assembly, Protestant workers replied with a strike. It was devised by the UDA with the help of shop stewards in key industries and directed by the Ulster Workers' Council. Its strategy was masterly and simple: to halt the life of the province. Industrial action in the oil depots starved the province of fuel. Electricity output was run down to a critical level. Industry was paralyzed. The workers were confronting Merlin Rees, Secretary of State for Northern Ireland in the new Labour government.
I made it abundantly clear that I was not prepared to negotiate with political strikers, just as I'd made it clear that I was not prepared to be bombed to the table, to the conference table. I was not prepared to be struck to the conference table.
Mr. Rees and the British government are going to have to come to grips with the task. They are going to have to, whether they accept it or not, they are going to have to accept the situation that the will of the Ulster people has got to be heard.
Picketing was organized. The strike was virtually complete. The economic life of the province ground to a standstill. For 13 days, the government did little. The army stood by and watched as the UDA themselves organized essential services in the province. Then Rees, in an attempt to break the strike, sent the troops to commandeer the oil depots to ensure fuel supplies. The Ulster Workers' Council considered its position. That afternoon, as the British Army was seen to take over petrol stations, it announced that it was withdrawing those few Protestant workers still maintaining essential services. The army was to be left to run the province.
Consequence of the government decision in using troops to subvert the stoppage, the council have agreed that bread and milk supplies will be the responsibility of the army, as and from midnight on Tuesday 27th. On electricity supplies, by midnight tonight, Ballynumport Power Station will be closed. The UWC will agree to one final delivery of feedstuffs on Tuesday. Thereafter, the army must shoulder this burden.
The army simply could not run and maintain all essential services in the province. Life itself was threatened. Rees still refused to negotiate. But Faulkner's position was becoming untenable. The strike had clearly demonstrated that his acceptance of power sharing had little support among Protestants. On the 28th of May, he saw Rees.
I recommended this morning, on behalf of myself and my unionist colleagues, that some sort of dialogue between government and those confronting it should now take place. But the Secretary of State was unable to accept this recommendation. We have therefore offered our resignations to the Secretary of State and have advised him to explore at once the possibility of constructing a new administration on a basis which will command general public confidence.
My general view is this, that the Sunningdale and power sharing, which was set up by the previous administration, was a magnificent concept which I supported, And as a result of the elections on February 28th, which weakened the situation, coming up to this strike, there's no doubt that there's been a severe setback in that concept of getting the two parts of the community to work together to power share.
As Asquith had underestimated Carson in 1912, so Rees misread the Protestant resolve of 1974.